everybody, and welcome back to the D&D podcast. Now, it's been a while since I've uploaded, and I'm sure the two of you that watch know that. But I had a little bit of extra time, and I wanted to finally talk about my story of running the Tomb of Horrors. Now, the Tomb of Horrors was a very old dungeon made by Gary Gax himself. He was very big in the world of D&D back in the 70s and 80s. And it was meant to punish the player. And it was made to have almost the DM versus player mentality. Because if I remember the story correctly, Gygax had a party that was getting too strong and too cocky. So he really wanted to make a dungeon to just punish them. And punishing it is. It was even punishing for me because that was a first edition dungeon. I did my own personal conversions to get it to 5e. And now, yes, there is a pre-converted version of that, and I believe it was called the Tales of the Yawning Portal. But I've heard mixed things about that. Some people say it's not as accurate as it could be. Others are saying they've dumbed it down, made it too easy. So I did my own personal conversions from the first it wasn't a pamphlet, but the first E dungeon. I was able to get myself a copy of that, and it took me several months because there was a lot of research I had to do to find out a lot of what the damage would be in 5e terms, what the enemies would look like, stuff like that. Now, there are a lot of things. I should probably preface this. I will be going into a couple of spoilers of the tomb, but just into a couple of the traps. I may spoil the ending later on. This is, if you haven't been able to tell by now, almost all of my videos are completely unscripted, so, spoiler warning right here. Now, some traps in this tomb can instantly kill your players. I remember assuming they find the correct entrance. There are fake entrances to the tomb which can also kill you. If they find the correct entrance, there's a long hallway. There are some traps on the floor, but if they make it through, there's a portal of mist and this demonic figurehead. It's like a head mounted on a wall, with its mouth wide open and an orb of pure blackness inside. If the players stick their hand or crawl into the mouth, they instantly die and their soul is destroyed. And their character is gone. Just like that. I know there's another time where the floor they walk into a room because they were actually supposed to, I'll give a little preface. There's a long hallway. When they walk down, there's a single trap. The players might fall into it or they might avoid it. There's a pitfall trap with spikes at the bottom, so they can't be seen at the bottom because it's a little too deep and a little too dark. Now, if they avoid that one, there's a second one, exact same thing. A little bit further, there's a third one. However, they're supposed to go in that third one. There is no reason for them to. There's no indication that they should. But yeah, they're supposed to go in the third one, even though the first two have shown that, these are traps, not places to go through. So if they're a normal party and they just avoid the third trap and they continue down, they will reach a door. They go inside, they hear a crying of some sort. If I'm remembering this correctly, it's some kind of crying or plea of some kind. If they go further in, it gets louder. They keep going, and then it stops all of a sudden. Now, it tells the DM to start counting down from 10. It doesn't really give the players any indication of what they're supposed to do, just that start counting from 10. And the floor begins to tilt downwards, and it leads to a fiery incineration pit. I believe it was some kind of disintegration spell, but I couldn't find a conversion, so I just made a semi-conversion of it, which for most people was just instant death, because they would be stuck down there anyway. And that's just where a lot of people would die. There are other rooms where just the ceiling collapses on you for no reason, and even this is almost the cruelest one. If they get far enough, there is a fake area that that tells the DM pretend that this is going to be the final boss. This is the final room, and the players, there's even like a fake version of a Sirak whose tomb this is supposed to be. And yeah, there's even a fake version of him. He's supposed to give some monologue speech like, "Oh, you adventurers have found my tomb, but can you defeat me and find yourself back out or take my treasure?" And he's not that hard to deal with. So if a high enough level player should be able to take care of him easily. And then the DM's just supposed to act like the game is over and they have to find their way out. The real tomb, though, is further in through more tricks, more traps, some of which instantly kill you before you actually get to the final boss that is a Sirak. And he can just look at you and suck your soul out into a gem in his eye. It's almost, well, it's not almost, it is very unfair to the players. But I decided one day, it was Halloween. This is more of it's very infamous, and it has a spooky connotation around it because it's called the Tomb of Horrors, even though it's more frustrating than scary. Well, I guess it's scary if you like your character. But I decided I was going to be kind. I wasn't going to just say, "Yeah, you're all dead 5 minutes into the game." I decided to give them each 3 extra lives. So essentially, if they were to die in the tomb, they would basically kind of come back to life in a safe area 3 times. If they died a 4th time, they were just dead. Because these characters were, we had recently run a campaign that ended. I figured, they all like these characters already. Let's use them. They're strong enough for the encounters there, so that's what we did. Anyway, they entered the tomb, finally, after finding one of the fake doors. And they go through a little bit of it unscathed, until they start dying, and dying, and dying some more. In total, there were 9 deaths among 4 people, each with 3 extra lives. Several of them were almost dead for good. It was a very fun experience. It's been a while now, so a lot of my memories have faded over time. But it was very fun for me as the DM. That's what I remember. A lot of people say, "Oh, I didn't like running this, they didn't like playing it," though I don't see what's not to like about running it. It's very fun. Granted, I had practically memorized it from front to back. I did all the conversions myself, so maybe I was proud of my work, but it was just very fun to do. Also, I kind of knew where Gygax was coming from. The players were high level. They were very cocky. It was very fun to see them get taken down a peg. But that was my experience with the Tomb of Horrors. I actually highly recommend this game. But only if I do recommend my special exception with 3 extra lives, because it's really not a fun game if you go in and one character's dead in 5 minutes, and then they just kind of sit there while the others just slowly die themselves. It keeps it more interesting, but if you just want to punish your players that quickly, you can run it as intended. But that's about all with my story. I'll try to recall any specifics off the top of my head. The one thing I very vividly remember was one of the players. She was a paladin. She was playing as a male paladin. That was a dragonborn, I believe. He was on his last life. Now, they had found the real tomb of the Sirak. I think all but one of them were still there, and he was on his last life. A Sirak rises from the tomb, and he's just a skull. Immediately looks at him, sucks out the soul, and the player just falls. They have to fight the entire final battle without their dragonborn companion, which was extremely difficult. It wasn't impossible, but it's still a very hard fight. I did kind of go easy on them because part of me was proud that they got so far, though I didn't really I didn't really pull any punches, but I probably could have been more intense. Use more abilities, use more legendary actions, stuff like that. But in the end of the day, they were able to succeed, and they got the treasure, which was pretty much, it wasn't good for what all they had to go through. Like, it was, if you were just to find this treasure, it would be awesome. But for completing the Tomb of Horrors, it's kind of minimal. Like, you get a lot of gold and silver, a couple of legendary items, but nothing really that stands out. Nothing that really just screams, I completed the Tomb of Horrors. Though I guess, granted, they wouldn't have if it wasn't for the extra lives rule anyway. They weren't too happy about that game overall, but now we kind of laugh about it. And it's one of my favorite games that I ever ran, with my personal favorite being Waterdeep Dragon Heist. But I've already talked about that. Maybe I will again someday in more detail, now that I've found all my notes about it. But until then, if you've listened this far in, thank you very much. Let me know if there's anything I can do to improve this channel in the comments. I know I always have the lowest quality channel and the lowest quality audio, but I'm very proud of that for some reason. And I hope you all have a good day. Until next time, bye-bye.